The World of Hyatt Protel program just made a big announcement. They're launching their new integration of Mr. and Mrs. Smith into the program. And no, it's not these Mr. and Mrs. Smith. The great news, 700 of these properties will start joining the World of Hyatt program and will be bookable by points and cash on their website. The bad news, Hyatt made a big promise along with this announcement, and I don't think they can keep it. Stick to the end because I have proof to show that Hyatt has failed to keep these promises in the past. In this video, I'm going to go over the benefits you'll get as a World of Hyatt member with Mr. and Mrs. Smith properties, the goods, the bads, 3 quick tips on booking with Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and my prediction with World of Hyatt and why it can't keep its promise. Mr. and Mrs. Smith is a collection of luxury and boutique hotels spanning 1,500 properties across 20 countries. Hyatt acquired Mr. and Mrs. Smith back in April of 2023. In my honest opinion, they really needed Mr. and Mrs. Smith integration so that they can get better coverage as they had lost small luxury and hotels to Hilton. Here are the official benefits that World of Hyatt members will get when they stay at a Mr. and Mrs. Smith property. Here are bright spots in my mind. You still get the 5 points per dollar for base spend at hotel stays. You will get qualifying nights when you stay with Mr. and Mrs. Smith properties towards status and milestones. You'll also get an extra brand for the Bingo Hyatt card. They will waive luxury resort fees when you stay with award points, and Hyatt Globalist will still get possible upgrades upon check-in. However, in my mind, if you compare small luxury and hotel benefits that you got with Hyatt versus the Mr. and Mrs. Smith properties benefits, you can see that it's not as good. Here are some things that I wish they had added. Many of the Globalist benefits are not present at Mr. and Mrs. Smith properties, like breakfast for your family or even late checkout. The free night certificates that you earn with Hyatt don't apply at Mr. and Mrs. Smith properties. And unfortunately, Mr. and Mrs. Smith properties won't even count as a Hyatt property with your World of Hyatt credit card. Like really now, come on Hyatt, you can do better. But you might be thinking, well, it's not that bad if I just don't get breakfast or some of the Globalist benefit. But here's the worst news. Mr. and Mrs. Smith award redemption properties will use dynamic pricing. Wait, Eric, what's dynamic pricing? Dynamic pricing is when you tie the award redemption point cost of a hotel stay to the cash nightly rate. So take for example, a $100 hotel room might cost 10,000 points, and when that hotel room is $400, the hotel room will cost 40,000 points. One of the main reasons my family keeps all their stays with Hyatt and be a loyal member is because they have a fixed award chart that maximizes on the value that I can get with the credit card points that I am earning. So for the same example of that hotel room, regardless if it costs $100 or $400 a night, Hyatt has set a fixed rate of 12,000 points for that room, regardless of which night you book it. So here's the crazy part. With dynamic pricing in effect for Mr. and Mrs. Smith properties, take for example this all-inclusive in Fiji would cost 364,000 points. That blows my mind because the top property for Hyatt right now costs 50,000 points per night. And you know what? I can hear all the Hilton and Marriott people laughing at us right now. Using my incredibly scientific method of doing research, I believe point redemption values for Mr. and Mrs. Smith properties will be between 0.9 and 1.4. If you're still wanting to try one of these Mr. and Mrs. Smith properties, here are 3 quick tips. Number 1, when booking your stay, make sure to shop your prices and look at multiple locations and sources for the best nightly rate. Number 2, if you're booking by points, remember that they will be waiving the resort fee, so factor that into your calculations. Number 3, and if you're staying at Mr. and Mrs. Smith property for a very special occasion, I recommend write ahead of time to the hotel and explaining your situation and really talking about some of the things that you would really make it special for your stay at their property. If you want a template, you can check out one in the description below. Bonus tip, the best way to find Mr. and Mrs. Smith properties is to use the Explore Map feature in the Hyatt website. Remember to apply the Mr. and Mrs. Smith filter and then you will see all the properties available on the map. The number one question that came to everyone's mind when they announced dynamic pricing was, oh my god, is it going to apply to all the other Hyatt hotels? From multiple travel blog sources, from Hyatt's direct representatives and vice presidents, they have cited that no, they will not be bringing dynamic pricing to any of their Hyatt properties. They also explained that Mr. and Mrs. Smith Fine Experiences and Home and Hideaways by World of Hyatt is really different from all their other hotel collections that they own. As a public company that's worth $15 billion, beholden to shareholders for profit and revenue, and facing rising inflation in a tough economy, do you really think that they're gonna keep their promise? And if you don't believe me, just look at Hyatt's track record. Let's go back in time to October of 2018 when they rolled out Category 8 for the first time into their World of Hyatt program. And what did they promise us? So what's the likelihood of Hyatt keeping their promise 5 years from now? And let me know in the comments below what you think. I personally think that 5 years they would have broken their promise and they're going to start moving properties into their dynamic pricing model. And if you're interested in diversifying your credit card points, check out this next video.